What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 193 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, incomparable Zach Jones, and the day has finally got here. It is time for us to review the grand finale of season 1 of The Acolyte, episode 8. All right, guys. So, what did I think of this episode and this series overall? Well, I think I would score wise give both this episode and the season overall the same, which is a 6 out of 10, which just means it's fine. It's okay. Um, I think this is the hardest kind of show to review because, unlike some people would make you believe that it's like comically terrible, and it's not. I wish it was because then it would be kind of fun to pick apart. But it's also not something that I can just be like, oh, this was so cool, and there's not like a lot of like really hype, praiseworthy moments in the show either. It's just kind of run of the mill. Maybe sets up some interesting things for season 2. So now that I've seen this, I mean, it is obviously our setting up a second season, which I expected off the jump that it probably wasn't going to be a one and done season. And so I think my recommendation overall for season 2 is, in the words of Elvis, a little less conversation, a little more action. Because I think if this season had any small highlights, it was when they actually had action, when they had some cool lightsaber fights, both in episode 5 and this episode. And so I really wish, I really hope rather, that they do take the action up a notch in season 2. I assume Disney's going to greenlight this thing. I think the numbers have been, well, I heard him talk about the numbers in the first week, because apparently, like, the first day or two, it was like, gangbuster views, but maybe it's calmed down since then. But yeah, I mean, more action for sure. I think, listen, I have nothing against dialogue if it's interesting, but this show had so much repeated dialogue. I mean, just in this episode, I'll get to it, but like, basically the same kind of conversation happened between Sol and May, and then May and Osha, and then Osha and Sol, which is basically like, you killed our mom. Yeah, but I thought I was doing the right thing to protect. I feel like we heard that conversation so many times. Even in the earlier episode, he basically had the same conversation with like Indara, and it's just like hammered and hammered and hammered. I think the main problem with this season is I think the writer really thought that reveal last episode that Sol killed their mom was going to be a kind of a bigger revelation to us, the audience, and maybe for some it was. For me, it really wasn't, and they left enough gray area there to be like, his decision wasn't like completely crazy. Like, she started to like, turn to smoke, which in turn made, I think, May kind of turn to smoke. And it's like, yeah, he, in that instance, like, he may have thought like she was like going to be hurt, or she was going to like do them some damage or kill him. So I don't know. I just don't think it almost would have been more interesting if it was, more callous in a way, him doing it, and more unjustified, I guess. I don't know. I feel like they tried to make narratively and emotionally that scene be the hook of the whole season, and it didn't quite work for me. Maybe it did for a lot of people. I don't know. But yeah, I just, and I feel like they kicked the can down the road to a second season to a point like, which I get. If you're going to do a second season, you want some tantalizing breadcrumbs, but you still want to tell a complete and satisfying story within each season of television. Hopefully that's the goal. And I don't know. I think I was just left underwhelmed. Like I guess it did accomplish the fact that by the end of this episode, we now see who the Acolyte is, and I guess spoilers. Spoilers for this whole thing, but obviously it is Osha, and so they did. It does seem, I mentioned, I believe last episode that it looked like they were going to do the double turn, as it were, where Osha would turn to the dark side, and in a way May would turn to the light side. And although May, I guess, isn't totally turned to the light side, it does kind of seem like she's starting a path of redemption at the end of the episode. So it seems like it's going in that direction. They also teased, and I'll get to it in when we get to the plot breakdown as well. But there was some sort of mysterious creature we see. I think some people online are saying, is that Darth Plagueis? Now, I'm not enough of a Star Wars, like I've heard of Darth Plagueis, and I know a lot of people want to see that storyline, played out. Personally, I thought and I kind of mentioned on the last episode, I think, that I thought maybe their other mother, Coral, would come back into play, because I don't think we ever see her dead body, and so I was wondering if this could possibly, instead of a major character, just be her altered after what happened. That's probably not true, but it'd make I think, some narrative sense to bring her back. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. I thought this show, unfortunately, was just, I guess mid. It's middle of the road. Like I said, 6 out of 10 seems fair. I'm sure some people think that's more than fair. I definitely, as far as the Star Wars TV shows go, I will say this is on my lower end of them. I think, Ahsoka, which I liked better than this, also can kind of, I would also say they kind of leaned on breadcrumbs to season 2 a little too much as well, instead of making sure they tell a satisfying story within the first season of Ahsoka. But I definitely anticipate season 2 of Ahsoka more than season 2 of this show. Book of Boba Fett started off rough, but then because it turned into another Mandalorian season, I kind of ended up liking it more than this as well. So I don't know if this would rank dead last for me as far as the Star Wars shows, but it's definitely on the low end. I'd have to think about it. But yeah, curious what you guys thought about this season overall. And with that in mind, I think it's time to get down to the plot details. All right. So we start off. Osha has the, I guess not last episode before last, it ended with her putting on Kamir's helmet. So we start off with her in the helmet, and she starts kind of going crazy in the helmet, kind of seizing out. Kamir sees this, so he grabs onto her, which we see actually has an effect on him, starts to hurt him. But he fights through the pain and is able to get the helmet off of her. So Osha says that she saw May with her hand outstretched, killing Soul. Kamir asks where she is. Osha said she had a saber in her hand, but she didn't use it. And so, obviously, flash forward, we know that she actually saw a vision of herself, rather than May. Kamir says that this is the future she saw, and that May can kill with no weapon. OSHA says that the future isn't fixed and that she can still stop her. Kamir asks her with what ship, because he's going to take his. Which also did a couple episodes ago, he just like told her like, you can have the ship. So it seems like he's kind of going back on his word there. OSHA asks him where exactly are you going then? Because she says she's seen where they are, and he doesn't know where it is. So he says, okay, they'll go together, and they'll see who gets to May first. So now we cut over to May. She's still in restraints. Her and Sol are talking. May asks Sol where they are, and he replies, Brendok. Took her back to Brendok. She asks why. He says he will contact Master Venestra and that the Jedi will meet them there. She asks why again. He says there is a vergence on this planet. He says now that her and OSHA are both alive, he can prove it. She says, prove what? That murdering their mother was justified. He says what happened to her and the Coven was an accident. Again, these kind of lines pop up over and over and over again. She says if it was an accident, then why didn't he tell OSHA? She asks why he lied to OSHA and blamed it on her. And he says he didn't really lie. Like, she did start the fire and lock everyone in. But she says because the Jedi invaded their home. She says everyone there died because of the four Jedi. He says that it was right for them to intervene. He says that his biggest regret was that he wasn't able to save both of the kids. He says that her and OSHA are... I should mention, at this point, OSHA gets Pip out of her pocket, and she starts using Pip to undo her restraints. He says that her and OSHA are not twins. He says that they are not even sisters. And then before he can kind of, tell the full story, which you think she would kind of be interested in, maybe like let him go a little more. She uses Pip to free herself, and then she tases Sol using Pip. Again, Pip, he can do anything. He can blind people, he can tase people, he can put out fires. Real handy. So yeah, she tases Sol, and before he can finish his sentence. So she runs off and is followed by Basil. Again, a character I kind of hate. I don't know why. I just find him very annoying. She tells Sol, see you in hell, Jedi, before she gets in the escape ship. So she gets in the ship, but Sol does pursue her in his ship. She ends up flying into like the I guess Brendok. I don't know if it's Brendok or like maybe a moon around Brendok has like a ring that's kind of not exactly an asteroid field, but like it's a ring that has a lot of like small particulates in it, and she kind of goes in there to lose him. She flies into that ring, and she says that he's too big to follow her in there, but apparently not, because immediately that's what he does. He follows her anyway, and he almost gets a target lock on her ship, which, like, I don't know if that was supposed to be a tractor beam or if he was just gonna like say this doesn't fit with his character, that he would just like blow her up. But Basil ends up sabotaging the ship so that he can't get the lock on her, like bites through some wires. Which my thing is, did Basil like think he was going to kill her? And then Sol and Basil like never really have any sort of, like, I don't even know if he can speak his language or whatnot, but they never really have a conversation. So I was a little confused by all that. So May crash lands on Brendok, which looked like a rough crash, but she's fine apparently. Back on Coruscant, Venestra is informed that Senator Raincourt is there to see her. She is upset that Mog let him into the control room. I have no idea what the control room is, but apparently she didn't like him in there. Raincourt says he was surprised she traveled through hyperspace and asked how her stomach is. She says it's her head, actually, but that she's fine. Now, I don't remember if they set that up in a previous episode, like maybe she has some sort of aversion to, traveling in hyperspace. I don't know. But anyway, she says it must be urgent since he's waiting for her there. By the way, I forget this actor's name, but it's the guy that plays Martian Manhunter in the Supergirl CW show. He says that he's heard some disturbing things. He said he heard she is conducting a murder investigation without reporting it to the Senate. She says that she is keeping it internal for the moment. She says she has the authority to take independent action if there's no larger threat. He asks how she can know that there is no larger threat. She says that all the victims were Jedi. Now, to me, I would go, well, that seems like it might be a larger threat. You're telling me the most powerful people in the universe were just like wiped out? It seems like that might be evidence of a larger threat. He is surprised to hear that there are more than one victim. He thought there was probably just one murder victim. She says that she's very close to apprehending the suspect. He asks if the suspect is a Jedi. And she says, very close. Thank you for your concern. So I guess that's her acknowledging that, the Sith are, somewhat close to the Jedi. He tells her that she doesn't like him and thinks his desire for an external review of the Jedi is a personal vendetta. She says if he wants her honest opinion, yes, that is what she believes. He says his honest opinion is that he thinks the Jedi are a massive system of unchecked power, posing as a religion, a delusional cult that claims to control the uncontrollable. So, I mean, I do like that idea that, the whole world doesn't just see the Jedi as like this peacekeeping group of heroes, and that there are people that see them as like delusional fanatics. It is kind of like an interesting thing. She says that they do not control the Force, and he says not the Force, their emotions. He says they project an image of goodness and restraint, but it's only a matter of time before one of them snaps. He says when, not if that happens, who will be strong enough to stop them? She says that that's certainly an opinion and not one shared by the rest of the Senate. He says that the majority of his colleagues can't imagine a galaxy without the Jedi, and he can understand why. He says that when you're looking up to heroes, you don't have to face what's right in front of you. She asks him if that's all and shows him the way out. He says that he has reported her lack of transparency to Chancellor Drellick. He says that the Chancellor may invite her to a Senate tribunal for an update. And I believe that's what happens at the end of this episode. He says that he hopes for her sake that she has a suspect in custody by then. He says good luck, but then says, no, what is it you people say? May the Force be with you. So he just kind of gives her the business on that one. So now we're back to Kamir and Osha. Kamir asks Osha if she's really not going to tell him where they're going. She says that they go together or they don't go at all. She says that seems fair. He asks if he gave her the impression that he was a fair person. She says yes, he did. Because she says he made a deal with her sister and he expected her to uphold it. She says that was fair and so is this. He tells her that she should really should be trained. He asks if she would ever consider letting him train her, and she says no. He tells her it's her last chance, and she says that she is not her sister. And he says, "You definitely are not." He says May made that deal without even thinking about it. So as they fly off, I referenced this early. They are watched by some sort of mysterious creature. You know, so I guess like some people are saying Doris Plagueis. Some hell, I don't know. Some Star Wars nerds might actually know who that is. But it's a mystery for now. A breadcrumb into season 2. So Sol lands on Brendock. As he walks away, Basil watches him from inside the ship. Now we get a scene with Vernestra. Vernestra speaks to a mysterious voice, like over an intercom system, saying that she needs to get a message to somebody. The voice says that they will see what they can do. Mog enters and tells Vernestra that Sol turned his transponder back on and that he's on Brendock. I guess I must have missed that part, but yeah, I think once he landed on Brendock, we see him flip the transponder back on. So Vernestra tells Mog to prepare her ship and gather as many Jedi Knights as she can without raising alarm. He asks her if she anticipates a confrontation, and she says a resolution. So Osha and Kamir arrive on Brendock, and Sol notices them fly in. Sol's looking for May. He's screaming her name, but she doesn't answer. So Osha and Kamir walk to that elevator scene in prior episodes of the one that leads into the city. Osha says that getting the elevator operational is the only way unless Kamir wants to climb the city walls. He asks her if she is sure, and then like she looks away for a sec, and when she looks back up, he's disappeared. Sol sees the remnants of the broken bridge where, he let May drop. He leaves that room, and we see May pull herself up from where she was hiding. So she was like kind of down in that hole. May walks into her old burnt up room, and she remembers what happened there. Osha gets the elevator working and enters the city. Sol yells for May, and at that point Kamir shows up and thanks him for leading him to May. He says that they make a great team. So they begin to fight with their sabers, and again, this to me would be the highlight of this episode. I think that's one of the strengths of this Acolyte show is they've had some good lightsaber fights, some good choreography. So, I'm hoping in season 2 that maybe they will identify that as a strength of the show and really give us some good fights. So yeah, they begin to fight. Sol says that he will destroy him if he must. Kamir says not if she gets him first, I guess referencing, I guess he could be referencing Osha, but I think May. Kamir split his saber into one big saber and one small saber. So I will say they are trying to do kind of interesting things with sabers. And I know Venestra's weapon is actually more of like a mace, which I don't know, might look cool, but seems way too dangerous given that it's a lightsaber that can cut through anything. It just seems like a bad idea. Plus, like, having to use a mace when you're against somebody that has just a regular lightsaber, like, I mean, you could win, but it also seems dodgy. But hey, maybe that's potential for a season 2. But yeah, I kind of like the versatility of like it splitting into 2 weapons. And like that's something you also see in kind of like Japanese sword fighting is like they got the big sword and then like the small dagger that they can, pull out. So Soul ends up knocking the small saber out of his hand, and then Soul is able to kind of do like a force kick and kind of hurt him. But then Khmer uses a force to throw both of his sabers at Soul, but Soul uses a force to push both Khmer and the sabers away. Osha meets May in their old room. Osha says that all of the death and everything that happened here was all because May did not want her to become a Jedi. May says that she didn't do this. She says Soul lied to Osha and blamed her. Osha says that Soul never blamed May. She says that he tried to teach her to accept someone she loves could be capable of this level of destruction, and that she failed. She says that she could never learn to calm her negative emotions, her hatred of May, her grief over their mother. So she never became a Jedi. She says, so in the end, May got what she wanted. May says that Soul killed her mother. She says that she saw it with her own eyes. She says that he's lied to her every day since she left her home. She asks how he could teach her to control her negative emotions because he's the reason she has them. May says that Osha didn't fail, Soul failed. This angers Osha, so those two begin to fight. At one point, Osha notices that May has Pip, and Pip, because he's now programmed to serve May, sprays her in the eyes. And then they continue to fight, which transitions back to Soul and Khmer fighting. As they fight, they notice a ship flying in the background, which, is presumably Venestra, which it is. Soul tells him that now he will pay for what he did. Khmer says that they are not here for him. Osha and May stop fighting for a moment when they see that ship flying, and then May disappears when Osha isn't looking. I gotta say, Osha, she takes her eye off the ball. First she does this and Khmer just disappears. Now she does and May just disappears. Everybody's quiet. They just disappear. It's like she's Commissioner Gordon and they're Batman. So Soul ends up cutting through Khmer's saber. So he ends up taking off his helmet and basically surrendering. Soul puts his saber to Khmer's throat. But then May shows up and starts fighting Soul. She is able to take Soul's saber away from him. Khmer tells her that she did a good job. He tells her to feel her anger. He says, this is the source of your pain. But then she throws the saber to the ground and seemingly breaks it, like we see the Kyber crystal kind of fall out of place. Khmer says that if she strikes him down, her journey will be complete. She says no. She wants him to confess what he did. She wants him to face the High Council, the Senate, the Republic. She wants him to pay for his crimes. Soul says that he did the right thing. Again, repeated dialogue over and over. He says that he wanted to protect both of them. She asks from what? He says they are not twins. He says that her and Osha are the same person. He says that he does not know how her mother did it. He says it has something to do with a virgins on this planet. May asks how she did what, and Soul replies, created life. He says he believes she used the Force to create May and Osha. He asks her if she has any idea what kind of power that is. He says that in the history of the galaxy, very few have been that powerful. While they are talking, Osha picks up Soul's lightsaber. May says, he says very few have been that powerful. May says, and you killed her. You killed our mother. So Soul confesses to killing her mother, and Osha overhears that and asks him if that's true. He says that he was protecting her and that it was the right thing to do. Again, repeated dialogue. She asks if it was she asks if it was the right thing to do, why didn't he tell the Jedi? He says that without May, there was no proof they were created that way. She asks why he didn't tell her. He says that they would have sent her away because she was too old to train. He says that they never would have let her become a Jedi. And he says he thought he did what was best for her. He says that he wanted to tell her many times but couldn't. Osha tells him to stop talking. So says he kept it from her so he could have the life she always dreamed of. He tries to tell her that he did everything because he loved her, but Osha cuts him off and starts choking him using the Force. As she chokes him, the Kyber crystal changes color, I guess from blue to red, and she chokes him unconscious. Now, when this happened, I thought she just like choked him unconscious and didn't kill him, but we will get a scene later on that seemingly points to him being dead. And maybe they could find a story way to double back on this and say, no, he really is alive. But then, like, they show a scene with Vanessa later on that it's like, well, if that's the case, it doesn't really make sense. I'll get to it, but they make it seem like he's dead. Kamir walks up to Osha and she lashes out at him with the saber, with the blade now turning from blue to red. Vernestra exits her ship and senses that Kamir is there. She is surprised that he is alive. At the same time, he senses her and puts his helmet back on. So now we know that those two have some sort of shared past. Vanessa tells her men to follow her. Maud notices Basil following behind, and he is relieved to see that he's okay. May tells Osha that they need to leave. She tells her to come with her and that she knows a way out. May tells Osha that they need to climb down that same hole that she fell in as a child. So they go down there and they end up going inside this core tunnel that May was sucked into as a child that I guess leads out of there. Vernestra shows up and finds Sol's body. She has a sense memory of what happened 16 years ago. This is something I know the Force has been established that it can do. I recently played that Jedi Survivor game. Finally beat it. And they have what's called sense echoes, where it's basically the same thing, where like you find these and he like senses some memory of something that happened there. So it is a canon thing, but again, it's one of those things where the Force, I think, can be used as too much of a plot device sometimes. She tells the others to search the premises and set up a perimeter. She says that they couldn't have gotten far. She tells Maud to use Basil to help in the search. Kamir is watching her from above, and then at some point she senses him and looks up to where he was, but then, you know, once again, Batman, Jim Gordon type of thing, he's disappeared. So they give Basil the scent of a backpack that I guess must have belonged to one of the girls. May and Osha find the Bunta tree from when they were kids. May says that she sat there and waited after they were split up as kids. Osha apologizes for not believing her. May apologizes for starting the fire. Osha starts saying that rhyme that they do, born as one or whatever. Osha says she thought, or May asks who taught them that rhyme. Osha says she thought she made it up. At that time, Kamir shows up and he uses the Force to take the lightsaber away from her. He says that if he can find them, so can the Jedi. Osha says that they'll tell the Jedi and they'll have to believe them. Kamir questions her putting her faith in the Jedi. Kamir and May tell Osha that as soon as the Jedi discover how powerful she is, they will kill her like they did her mother. Osha asks May what they should do. She asks Osha what she wants. Osha tells Khmer that if he lets her sister go, that she will train with him. May asks her if she is sure. May says that the Jedi will use her to find Osha. Khmer tells Osha that he can attempt to wipe May's memory and remove any trace of him or her permanently, and May agrees to it. Look, I know they can do the Jedi mind trick, but now knowing that they can do this, again, it almost seems like giving the Force too much power. And also, I'm sure it contradicts something that would have happened in a future installment of Star Wars, or timeline wise, something that I'm sure there's if we go back through the old movies and stuff, we can go like, oh, they could have just like totally erased this guy's mind, like this powerful general, or maybe even Darth Vader. And well, Vader, you can argue is so with the Force, you probably couldn't do that to him, but you could have done it to a powerful Empire general and stuff like that. Just made them all vegetables that couldn't remember stuff. I'm just saying it's something they probably would have used if they could have, or the bad guys would have used it on the good guys. You know what I mean? Osha tells May that she cannot lose her again. May says she isn't, and she is going to do what she was meant to do. She says she will not stop her this time. Osha reaches out to shake Khmer's hand, and he puts the saber back in her hand. She tells him to wait so she can hug May goodbye. She tells May that she will find her, and May says that she knows she will. They start reciting the rhyme again until May forgets the words due to Khmer wiping her memories away. Also, you think it would be a very involved process for him to do that, but no, he's just like, and memory gone. So they leave May under the tree. May surrenders to the Jedi. Back on Coruscant, May is brought into the control room with Venestra, who tells the guards to remove her restraints. She asks May if she knows why she's there. May says that they say that she killed someone. She says that she doesn't remember. Venestra asks her what she does remember. She says a fire. She says it destroyed her home. She says she sees the man that killed her mother, so she ran away. She says that there's someone that she needs to tell, but she can't find her. Venestra says that her last memory is from when she was 8 years old. She says the man who killed her mother was a Jedi and her friend. She says that he was a kind, brilliant, compassionate man, and that he did a terrible thing. Venestra tells the council what happened on Brendok, but then lies and says that Sol killed the other Jedi to maintain his cover story. So, I mean, I believe she's doing this basically in order to free May so she can use May as an asset going forward, but also probably in a way because she believes that Sol would probably want her to be free and have a chance at redemption. I mean, you have to infer a little bit, but I would think so. She tells the council that she wholly condemns Master Sol's actions. Rayancourt says that due to the circumstances, they cannot wait for a full Senate vote. He says that an external review of the Jedi must begin immediately. Venestra says that although this was a tragedy, it was the work of one flawed man. A council member asks where Sol is now. Venestra says that he was found dead on Brendok at the scene of his original crime. Venestra says that she believes he ended his own life. But then we see her, as she's saying this to the council, we see a scene of her giving a Viking funeral, presumably to Sol. Now, this is what I was referenced referencing earlier, where it's like, if Soul did not die, then why are we seeing this scene? So, like, if they want to do the old switcheroo on us next season, then they have to explain that, oh no, this was her actually saying goodbye to someone else who died, which I could see them doing. Um, and honestly, I don't know. Maybe that would be better because I do like the I forget his name, but the Squid Games actor that plays Master Soul. I thought he did a very good job, so I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to him coming back. But I would find it silly for them to kind of throw this in there, especially when like his death just served, I think, as a good kind of catalyst for OSHA's change. So like it makes his death more meaningful if he did actually die. Um, so she tells May that Soul made a mistake he lived with for so long it twisted his mind. She says he justified every selfish step with the love he had for her sister. May is surprised to hear that she has a sister. Vanessa asks her if the name OSHA means anything to her, and she doesn't really respond. Vanessa says, "You poor girl, you've been through so much." She says that the Jedi have failed her. She says that she is going to make this right, but she needs her help. May asks with what? She says she needs to help her to find someone, a pupil of hers before he turned evil. So yeah, apparently Kamir was a student of Venestra. So again, a breadcrumb into season 2. I assume we'll be seeing more of that story, Kamir's turn years ago. And, also Venestra and May, their search to find Kamir and OSHA in that confrontation. So back on the island planet, Kamir holds OSHA's hand, which is holding the lightsaber. Now, I don't know if we're supposed to maybe infer that these two possibly have a romance brewing, or, if it's just supposed to signify that they are now, master and acolyte. I'm not sure. And then, very end, we find out that Venestra's master is Yoda, or at least someone of the same race. I would presume it's probably Yoda. But now I'm not. It's been a long time since I watched the prequels, but isn't there like a female of his species in the prequels? Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. I know like there's not a lot of like his race around, which is why like Baby Yoda and Grogu is like a big deal, I guess. I will say I almost hope it's not Yoda. I'm in the minority of Star Wars watchers. I find Yoda to be a very annoying character. I don't like the backwards speak, and he's just, I think he's the biggest buzzkill in the Star Wars universe, where it's like, oh, don't do that. That leads to pleasure, which leads to the dark side. Oh, don't do that. That leads to fear, which leads to the dark. It's like, shut up, Yoda. Let people have some fun. I don't know. Him. If I have to suffer through a season with both him and Basil, that I have an irrational hatred for, I don't know if I can do that. But no, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that reveal. We'll see what they do with it. So yeah, that was it. That was the finale of the Acolyte. Again, couple breadcrumbs going into season 2 that I'm interested in, but overall, I gotta say, this was a mediocre season. I found myself frequently bored. Too much repetitive dialogue that's basically saying the same thing. Again, like I mentioned last episode, I don't think that Rashomon style reveal structure-wise worked. I think they should have just told the whole story in episode 3 when they did the initial flashback. But yeah, 6 out of 10 is what I'm giving this. Fingers crossed for more action in season 2. Little more action, a little less talky. But yeah, what do you guys think? I'm curious to know. If you will, comment down below. Let me know. You can, of course, subscribe both to the YouTube channel and in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Thumbs up, positive reviews, comments, all that good stuff. If you like, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. But that'll do it for all of my shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.